Hi, I'm on the same road as yesterday, near to the entrance to Yarnton, and I'm going to continue the canal walk northwards. I'll explain how in a moment when I've got away from the traffic noise. I just want to say that this is another example of really bad traffic safety in or around Oxford. I wanted to I came in on that side of the road and I needed to cross in order to get to Green Lane, which leads me through to Kidlington and onto the canal. There is no official crossing point here, and the road is so busy that you're likely to get mashed if you try to cross it. And to make things worse, these tactile studs, as they're called, are supposed to be an indication to partially sighted people that it's safe to cross at this point. And if you did try crossing with poor vision here, you would get mashed, so it's really very bad. Anyway, this is the last that I'll see of the road today. I'm going to walk to Kidlington now, and I will end up on the road, Yarnton Road, that takes me to the end of Kidlington where most of the shops are, especially if you regard places like Tesco as an important shop. Now I hope I can cross. Actually there is a footpath alongside this road, this street, this lane through the fields, so I should be okay. So this is Green Lane. This roughly is north, and I'm heading towards Kidlington. And this is the level crossing. Hi.
Are you recording?
Can I cross?
Well, yeah, crack on, bud.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm doing a walking video.
Oh, okay.
Doing the canal. Thanks. Good. Interesting decoration in his cab. I can hear an ice cream van. Hi. Right, so I have to slow down and be careful here. And there may well be people abroad who haven't seen a level crossing before, so here is one for you. That's the railway, obviously. And that's the railway in the other direction. I suppose if you're from a country that doesn't allow level crossings, you'd get the same sense of surprise as I did when I first went to some of the Eastern European countries and noticed that there it was quite okay to cross over to the other side of the station by just jumping off the platform onto the lines and walking across them. That's nice. I wonder whether that is a farmhouse or whether there is actually an official level crossing keeper, and that's where they live. So that leads into the field, and I can walk along. And sometimes it's useful to have that alternative because I have known this one to get some quite deep puddles in the winter. Ooh. It's not something I've consciously thought about before, but a lot of paths like this have a grassy ridge in the middle and bare tracks on each side, as this does. And I'm wondering whether they're made that way or whether it just happens for some reason. Okay, so the land there is now a bit more open. And that's a nice example of trees as landmarks. Over there I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tall, very narrow trees. I'm not sure whether they're poplars or not. Equally spaced, presumably planted rather than just randomly seeded, and very distinctive. For all I know, there's a legend about them. There might be a local legend about, say, I don't know, 6 people from Kidlington who were turfed out after the last pub closed and who died of thirst and whose souls haunt the area forevermore, embodied into trees. There they are. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's what I meant by puddles. Right, I can see a car which has just turned and its lights, and what is probably a traffic light because it's just gone from red to green at the end of this track. This is Green Lane, and we intersect Sandy Lane, which starts from the same main road further north and then goes diagonally rightwards and intersects us at the end here. Those are still open. And I can't see much in that direction, but it looks like the same sort of crop. Looks as though there's a path there. It may not be an official footpath, but it's worth trying sometime. Yes, that's the footpath through the fields. That is Sandy Lane coming from the main road further north. And this is the canal bridge. So what I'm doing is rejoining the canal north of where I turned back yesterday. I turned back just before the bridge that goes over to Stratfield Brake, because I'd been told about a wasp's nest. Had I continued on, I'd have carried on along the towpath and eventually arrived here. This road comes into Kidlington. Kidlington is a very long village, so this is probably actually only about halfway up it. Kidlington is divided into two halves, north and south really, by appearance. The southern half ends just north of here, and it's got roughly the same style of houses interspersed with garages and Indian or other Asian restaurant and so on. And then the style changes a bit as you go past the shopping street that has a Tesco and a co-op and a butcher and I think a fish and chip shop and one or two other shops, charity shops. That street goes off in that direction. If you go to the end of this road, turn left and then turn right at the clock tower, you get into the shopping street. If you carry straight on at the clock tower, you come to the north half of Kidlington, which eventually peters out as it rejoins the road that goes past Langford Lane, which I talked about yesterday. So that's a brief introduction to the layout of Kidlington. And I'm going to get back onto the canal and which thankfully here is untouched virtually by traffic noise and Oxford University mega developments. I'm going to get back onto the canal and I'm going to see whether I can get myself a cappuccino. If my battery holds out that far. Because if I carry on walking, I will pass the northern end of Kidlington that I just mentioned, and I'll skim Langford Lane, which I mentioned yesterday, and I'll go past the western edge of the airport, though I won't see much of it because it will slant away from me, and I'll then go through a village called Thrupp, which has a row of terraced houses, I think they're terraced, alongside the canal, and at least one pub, the Jolly Boatman. And on the other side, this side, there's a lift bridge. I think it's a lift bridge, and it gives into the grounds of Annie's Tearooms, which is a very pleasant place to buy a large slice of cake or whatever and something to drink. The canal was built to carry coal from the coalfields of Coventry. What was I saying? The canal was built to carry coal from Coventry, from the Coventry coalfields, to Oxford, and I suppose redistribution via the Thames. This gave a direct link with London, amongst other things. Eventually, the canal was this canal was bypassed by the Grand Junction Canal, later known as the Grand Union Canal, which I think most people will have heard of. And it was probably only important for commerce for about 15 years, from what I've read. Signs of its use can be seen in Oxford. I mentioned in an earlier video about Bullock's Lane, the canal engineer's house that is now the house of the Master of St. Peter's. The canal now ends at Hythe Bridge Street in Oxford, but used to continue to a goods wharf and a turning space a little bit south of that. And then it went a little bit further south still, via a bridge under what's now called Worcester Street, to a coal wharf beside New Road. And that was filled in 1951, and Nuffield College took part of the site. Nuffield is on the north side of New Road. But certainly the canal was at one time associated with coal and other goods. If I keep walking, I'll come to Thrupp, and then I can go a good deal further. In fact, I have walked to Banbury, and yesterday I briefly filmed a sign that said Oxford Canal Walk, Banbury. But it goes further north than that, as I say, to Coventry. Just beyond Thrupp, it goes through Shipton on Cherwell, and apparently there part of the River Cherwell has been incorporated into the canal. I think this was cheaper than building a separate waterway, but apparently it makes navigation more difficult. So that's the next bridge north. That leads to one of the Kidlington housing estates. And that's the direction that I'm going in. Oops, I slipped on some gravel. Hi. I forgot to mention one thing. The canal was originally opened in sections over the years 1774 to 1790, and I keep coming across the year 1790. When I did Faces on High, the look at various carve and other figures on the high street, Payne's the goldsmiths started in 1790, and 1790 also crops up as the date that the Thames was remodelled and Oseney Lock was built, the time that the current navigation channel of the Thames, the one that goes under Oseney Bridge, started being used. So it makes sense that locks would obviously go in at the same time as the rest of the canal, and that if the Thames had to connect with the canal, that would be worked out too. I wonder whether the 1790 for Payne's the goldsmith is coincidence, or whether it indicates trade via the canal. That's a nice space to wander. Again, I don't know whether it's an official public footpath. There's another level crossing. And yesterday I walked past Fernhill Road and another which I think was just north of it, and I said there was a very nice track that went from the north end of a road that went north from it, if you follow me, and then came back south to Kidlington. And I think this is the end of that footpath, the southern end. So if I walked along there, wound my way left, I would end up, I think, at the north end of a road inside Begbroke, and then there'd be a road going south that connects to the main road. This is new. And permissive cycle path, right, so this is a cycle path which maybe also connects with roads inside Begbroke and obviously thereby with the main road. I wonder whether it was inspired by the needs of the Begbroke Hill Science Park, or whether it was built independently. Nice. Okay, well that's off the canal. I'm going to go back onto the canal and continue north. Roundham Lock. And that is how locks work. The two sides have water at different levels. Those are sweet. It's an unusual time of year to see pansies. The things you find on top of narrow boats. canal is quite wide here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, bloody hell, those are really vicious stinging nettles. Right, this is one of the main Kidlington road bridges crossing the canal, it must be. So let's see where this footpath goes. Right, I think that is part of Langford Lane, or very close to it. In Kidlington. Or possibly it's an offshoot of Langford Lane. Langford Lane has some quite large business premises with large grounds, and it may be an internal lane to one of them. It's odd that they haven't made it easy to get off the footpath. I mean, why just end it here? The footpath shouldn't just come to a dead end like that. Right, so I'm now going, there was a footpath up the side of the bridge. I'm now going back down to the canal. And I'll go under the bridge. So here I am, back on the canal. And yesterday I said that when you go northwards along the canal, you can tell you're getting towards Langford Lane and Thrupp by the industrial buildings, which now we clearly have. There's something ahead. there too. So now it looks as though I'm passing actually through an industrial estate, judging by the railings. And that. Ooh, a heron. There it is. And there it goes. Still in an industrial estate.
Sorry. Come on, Ellen. Come on.
And now I'm amongst buildings that look a bit more gracious on the right and probably quite modern. No, I was wrong, those aren't modern, are they? That is a pub. I can see the beer barrels. Huh. Well, that's one use for boots. Hi, are you the highwayman?
Yes.
Thanks.
I am.
Okay, so that's the Highwayman pub, which
I'll have that camera.
is around the north end of Kidlington. The highwayman. Right. I wonder how old that is. Pigeons roosting on the bridge. And like the last one, this bridge has a footpath leading up beside it. That guy is eating while he drives, which I'm sure he oughtn't to be doing. Right, so this is Langford Lane. The road south of it, roughly south, is the main road through Kidlington, and if I just walked back along there, I'd eventually get to a clock tower that leads off on the left to a shopping street, and if I continued straight on, I'd go the length of the Southern Ribbon development and eventually end up at a Sainsbury's. And if I continued still further, I'd hit the road that links Kidlington to Oxford, and I'd come in on Oxford's Banbury Road. So that's where I am relative to Kidlington and Oxford. That is Langford Lane, and at the other end is where I was yesterday on the road that goes to Woodstock. Right, let's go back down along the canal. And now I'm at Thrupp. There's the road past Thrupp. And the canal is very pleasantly manicured. They really ought to keep it like this all the way along. And I'm tempted to say that if England were Switzerland, they probably would. Now, I've mentioned that you can walk between Thrupp and Kidlington, and the nice routes for doing this are on the right. Meadows that go all the way back to St Mary's Church. That's a nice place too. Right, so I need to get up a little bit just to show the layout. That is the Jolly Boatman. So all I've done is to come off the canal there. That's the Jolly Boatman. That's the same main road that we heard earlier. That is an airport building. There is a footpath round the edge of the airport, and to the left, which goes up a lane called I think it's the Straight Mile, and then hits Upper Campsfield Road, and there's a lane from that to Woodstock. So now I'm on the bridge that goes over the canal. And that had a sign saying it leads to St Mary's Church. I don't know whether it meant St Mary's Church in Thrupp, if there is one, or St Mary's Church in Kidlington, which it certainly does lead to through the meadows. Now I'm looking at the south part of the canal. Yeah, that's the sign, St Mary's Church 1. If it's a mile, it's probably referring to the Kidlington Church. Okay, that's the other side of the Jolly Boatman. It's a lovely place to sit. Oops. And those fish and chips looked good. I'm very tempted to stop for a beer here, but it really is expensive in Britain. Hi. This is what I always think of as Thrupp. And the boat inn, yeah, that's the other one. There's the Jolly Boatman and the boat inn, which is there. There's more of the meadows of Thrupp. Boaters. Now I think that's a rather nicely done out narrow boat. Quite elegant. Pimm's is an alcoholic drink whose main constituent is gin, and it also contains fruit and I think lemonade, and typically you'd have seen it drunk in Brideshead Revisited. It's a popular summer drink that you can consume in very large quantities during garden parties, and it hits you with more force than you expect because it tastes like lemonade. Add another one to the pictures of idyllic. And I am now close to Annie's tea house. And it may be that I'm in the minority, having arrived here on foot. One group just left by car, another group has just come by car, and I think those two boaters are also just about to arrive. That's Annie's garden. I think the palm trees are new. Well, I've just asked whether they mind me videoing the interior, and they don't. So here we are. Actually, I'm pretty sure I know the artist who did that one. I think it's a chap called Merlin. Could be wrong. No, it is a chap called Merlin. Well, I'll give him some publicity too.
Which way to put it? That way, that way.
And these are some of the nice things they have to eat. Right.
Two cheese, please. And also one BLT back,
And a bacon and egg back as well, please.
and then white or brown? The white, please.
White.
And what was that second one? In one egg,
Bacon and egg
back.
back.
Bacon and egg, perfect. White, and then back again. Is that everything? I think so. Fabulous. That's 21.45. 12 sheets. And is it inside or outside the section? Which one is it? Inside? Yeah, inside. Okay, perfect. I'll just grab you a receipt, thank you, with an old number. Number 95. Thank you. Lunch for drinks and then again. Perfect, thank you. No, not at all.
Okay. Okay, well, this is Annie's Tearooms. That was a very nice coffee and piece of cake. And that is Annie's. See you next time.